The arrival, the sky over Earth was calm blue and peaceful. People walked to work, children laughed in schoolyards, and no one knew that their lives were about to change forever. At exactly 10:14 a.m., the calm was broken. Every phone, every TV, and every radio began to scream the same emergency message. This is not a test. All citizens are advised to stay indoors. Do not panic. A large object has entered Earth's orbit. In the capital city, people rushed out into the streets, pointing up. At first, it looked like a dark shadow in the sky, almost like a cloud. But clouds did not have edges this sharp. Clouds did not shine with cold, silver light. It was a ship larger than anything humans had ever built. It hung above the atmosphere like a floating mountain, blocking out the sun in some places. The name of this ship was unknown to humans, but to many worlds across the galaxy, it was feared. It was the Zorith Dreadnought, the warship of Commander Rotter. Rotter was no ordinary alien. He was a warrior with a history written in blood and battle. Whole planets had fallen to him. Armies had surrendered without a fight when they learned he was coming. He was the nightmare mothers whispered to their children when they wanted them to behave. And now he was here. On Earth's doorstep. Governments across the world went into emergency mode. Fighter jets scrambled into the air. Missiles were loaded. But deep down, the leaders knew. Against a ship that size, their weapons were little more than toys. Inside the dreadnought, Rotter stood before a massive window, looking down at Earth. His black armor reflected the dim lights of the command deck. His eyes, sharp, cold, and calculating, studied the planet as if it were prey. "Commander," one of his officers spoke in a strange, clicking language. "Shall we begin the attack?" Rotter did not answer right away. Instead, he raised a clawed hand, silencing the crew. He continued to watch the blue oceans, the green forests, and the cities full of tiny human life. There was something about this world, something that made him hesitate. On Earth, panic grew. News anchors spoke with trembling voices. Social media exploded with blurry images of the ship. Some people prayed. Others prepared to run, though there was nowhere to run to. In the United Nations building, world leaders gathered for an emergency meeting. The question was simple but terrifying. Should we try to talk, or should we strike first? President Lewis of the United States slammed his fist on the table. "If we fire, we die. If we do nothing, we might also die. But we need to try to speak to them first." "But what if they don't want to talk?" the British Prime Minister asked. No one had an answer. Then, the ship moved. Slowly, it rotated in orbit until its front was facing the planet. The central cannon, a weapon so large it looked like a city by itself, began to glow with a soft, deadly light. Billions of people around the world held their breath. Suddenly, every screen and speaker on Earth went black. Then, a deep rumbling voice filled the air. It spoke in perfect English, though its tone was alien and metallic. "People of Earth, I am Commander Ryder of the Zorith Empire. Your time has come. Surrender your planet or be destroyed." The message was short, final, and terrifying. Panic exploded. In homes, in streets, in shelters, people screamed. Some shouted to fight. Others cried to give up. But in the control room of the UN, there was only silence. Everyone was thinking the same thing. How could they fight a force like this? Back on the dreadnought, Rotter waited. His officers expected the humans to surrender quickly. Most species did when faced with him. But minutes passed, and there was no reply. Finally, Rotter turned to his communications officer. "Send the message again." "Yes, Commander." The officer replied, tapping on a glowing console. But deep inside, Rotter's mind was not as calm as it looked. He had fought humans before, many years ago, in a border conflict. They were strange creatures, fragile yet unyielding, weak yet clever. He had lost good soldiers fighting them. And though they were enemies, he could not forget one thing. They never gave up. Outside his ship, Earth hung in the dark void, beautiful and fragile. Ruther's eyes narrowed. This was no ordinary conquest. Something told him it would not go as the Empire planned, and he was right, because at that very moment, far below, a young human diplomat named Sarah Kane was preparing to send her own message. One that might change everything. First contact. For almost an hour after the aliens' terrifying announcement, Earth remained silent. No reply, no surrender. No attack, just silence. Commander Rotter stood on the bridge of his dreadnought, his black armor gleaming under the dim lights. His second in command, a tall, thin alien with pale blue skin, stepped forward. "Commander," the officer said in their native clicking language, "they do not respond. Perhaps their leaders are too afraid. We should strike now and be done with it." Rotter's eyes narrowed. Fear can be useful, but silence can be dangerous. He turned back to the window, staring at the small blue planet below. The humans were unpredictable. He knew this from experience. Many alien races surrendered without a fight, but humans had a strange habit of resisting, even when defeat was certain. Far below, in the United Nations building, the atmosphere was tense. The room was full of world leaders, military generals, and top scientists. Everyone was speaking at once, their voices loud, panicked, desperate. "We can't just wait for them to fire." A general shouted, "We have to strike first." "With what?" A scientist replied, "Our weapons can't even scratch a ship that size." President Lewis slammed his hand on the table. "Enough. We are not going to start a war that we can't win. If there's even a small chance we can talk our way out of this, we take it. But who's going to talk to them?" The British Prime Minister asked, "Do you know anyone who's fluent in giant scary alien?" The room fell silent, until a calm voice spoke up from the far end of the table. "I will," said Sarah Kane. Sarah was a diplomat, young, sharp-minded, and fearless. She had spent years working on peace treaties between human nations, but this was different. Still, she was the only one willing to try. "You're sure about this?" President Lewis asked. Sarah nodded. "If we attack, we die. If we wait, we die. But if we talk, maybe we live." Within minutes, Sarah was escorted to a secure communications room deep underground. Technicians worked quickly, linking her voice and image to a transmission system capable of broadcasting directly to the alien ship. A countdown began. 3, 2, 1. "Commander Rotter," Sarah's voice echoed across space, clear and steady. "This is Sarah Kane, representative of the people of Earth. We hear your demand, but we will not surrender." On the dreadnought, the bridge crew froze. This was not the desperate plea for mercy they had expected. Rotter stepped closer to the viewscreen, studying the human woman who now appeared before him. She looked fragile compared to his own towering form, but her eyes held no fear. "You refuse?" His deep voice rumbled through the coms. "I refuse to give up my people," Sarah replied, "but I am willing to talk. You came here for a reason. I want to know why." Rotter tilted his head slightly. "You think I would explain myself?" "To pray?" "Pray," Sarah smiled faintly. "Funny, I don't feel like pray." There was a murmur among the alien officers. Few had ever dared to speak to Rotter that way. "You are brave," Rotter admitted. "Or foolish. Perhaps both. But I am here because my orders are clear. Earth will fall to the Zorith Empire. Your people will be removed." "Why?" Sarah pressed. "We have done nothing to you." Rotter's expression darkened. "Not to me, but to them." He gestured vaguely to the stars. "The Empire sees your kind as a problem, unpredictable, dangerous, and unwilling to kneel. They fear you." Though they would never admit it, Sarah's heart pounded. Fear. Humans? That made no sense. Earth was tiny, weak compared to other civilizations, but she kept her voice calm. So you follow orders, even if those orders are wrong? The bridge fell silent again. No one had ever questioned Rotora's loyalty before, not like this. He took a slow step forward, his voice lower now. Be careful, human. You speak as if you know me. Sarah's gaze stayed locked on his. I don't know you. But I think you're not like the others in your empire. If you were, we'd already be dead. For a moment, Rotter said nothing. Then he turned to his crew. Leave us. The officers hesitated. It was rare for the commander to be alone with an enemy. But one look from Rotter sent them out the door. When the bridge was empty, he faced Sarah again. You are right. I could have destroyed your planet the moment I arrived. But there is another reason I am here. He leaned closer to the screen. The Empire is not your only threat. There is something far worse coming. Something even I cannot face alone. Sarah's eyes widened. What are you talking about? Rotter. Tone grew heavier. The Vornek swarm. They devour worlds, leaving nothing behind. Even the Zorith Empire fears them. And they are coming this way. Sarah's mind raced. Then why attack us? Why not warn us? Because the Empire plans to use your planet as bait, Rotter said. They will let the swarm destroy you, hoping to slow it down before it reaches them. My orders are to weaken your defenses so you cannot fight back. Sarah took a deep breath. The truth was worse than she imagined, not just an invasion, but a trap. Then help us, she said firmly. You have the power to destroy us, or to save us. Which will it be? For the first time in many years, Reiter hesitated. His mind was at war, obey the Empire and keep his honor. Or betray them and protect a world that was not his own. He did not answer immediately. And then, before he could, alarms blared across the bridge. His second-in-command stormed back in, eyes blazing. Commander, you are betraying the Empire, the officer shouted. You speak too long to the human. You hesitate. You grow weak. Rotter's jaw tightened. Leave now. But the officer did not leave. He turned and barked an order in their alien tongue. Instantly, several armed soldiers rushed into the bridge, weapons raised. Sarah's screen flickered. Rotter, what's happening? The commander didn't answer her. His eyes were fixed on the soldiers. It seems, he said quietly, that my war has already begun. Asterisk, a secret past blaster fire lit up the command deck of the Zorith dreadnought. The bridge, once silent and orderly, was now chaos. Loyal soldiers fought side by side with rebels loyal to Rotter's second-in-command, the traitor known as Vekor. Rotter moved like a shadow, his heavy black armor deflecting blasts as he charged forward. He knocked an enemy soldier to the ground with a single blow and grabbed another by the throat, lifting him clear off the floor before tossing him across the deck. Stand down. Rotter roared, his voice shaking the air. But Vekor only sneered. You are no longer fit to lead, Vekor spat. You speak to prey as if they are your equals. You hesitate when you should kill. The Empire will not forgive weakness. Rotter's jaw tightened, but before he could answer, one of his loyalists was struck in the chest and fell. More rebels poured through the door. The commander knew the fight was turning against him. Seal the bridge. He barked to the few still loyal. Metal doors slammed shut, locking the rebels out for the moment. Sarah's voice came through the still active. Comes. Rotter, what's going on? Are you safe? He turned to the screen. Safe is not a word I have ever known, human. His breathing was heavy, but his eyes were still sharp. It seems I must tell you something. Before my own people. Silence me forever. Sarah leaned closer to the camera. I'm listening. The war before Hasser's voice lowered, becoming slower, heavier. Many years ago, before you even knew the Zorith existed, our empire spread into your region of space. We found a small human colony, a mining world on the edge of a star system. My fleet was sent to claim it. Sarah's stomach tightened. And you destroyed it? His eyes darkened. That was the plan. But the humans fought. They had no starships, no advanced weapons, only mining tools and converted cargo haulers. Still, they refused to run. For weeks they resisted. My soldiers laughed at their weakness. Until the first victory turned to the first defeat. He looked away, as if seeing the past in the cold glass of the viewscreen. I lost 30 warriors to those miners. And when we finally broke through their defenses, their leader, a man named Captain Elias Vorn, detonated the colony's reactors. He destroyed the settlement, his people, and my troops. Just to keep us from taking it. Sarah's eyes widened. He killed himself. Rotter nodded slowly. It was the first time I saw a species choose death over surrender. It was the first time I saw an enemy fight not for land, not for power, but for something they believed in. For a moment, the bridge was silent except for the low hum of the ship systems. I respected him. Rotter said at last. And I have never stopped wondering what it is about humans that makes you so unwilling to kneel. The hidden reason. Sarah took a breath. So you came here now? Because of that memory? No, Rotter said grimly. I came here because the Empire ordered it. But when I saw your planet, when I remembered that colony, I knew I could not destroy you so easily. And now the swarm is coming. They will not give you the choice to fight or surrender. They will simply consume you. He leaned closer to the screen, his voice a low growl. If you fall, the galaxy loses something rare. And I have lost enough. Before Sarah could reply, the sealed bridge doors shook violently. The rebels were trying to cut through. Sparks flew as their plasma torches bit into the metal. Via Kor's voice shouted from the other side. Rotter, surrender the ship or die inside it. Sarah's eyes flicked to the sparks. You can't fight them all. You need to get out of there. Rotter shook his head. I cannot run from my own crew. But there may be a way to turn this to our advantage. The desperate plan. He quickly opened a hidden panel near his command chair, pulling out a small device that looked like a curved blade. This is a core detonator. If I activate it, the ship's main reactor will overload. I can destroy the dreadnought. Take Vacor and the rebels with it. Sarah's eyes widened in shock. That's suicide. Router's gaze was steady. So was Captain Elias Vorn's choice. Sometimes survival is not the victory is what you protect. The rebels' cutting tools broke through. The first layer of the door. Shouts echoed in the corridor. Time was running out. Listen to me, human, Rotter said, his voice sharper now. If I do this, the Empire will send more ships. They will come for you, harder than before. You will need to be ready. Sarah's heart raced. Then don't do it. Work with us instead. Fight the swarm, and show your people you're not weak, you're smart. The commander hesitated. His clawed finger hovered over the detonator. The noise of the cutting intensified. The smell of burning metal filled the air. Finally he spoke, slowly, as if each word was heavy. Perhaps there is another way. The choice. The doors burst open, and armed rebels stormed in, weapons raised. Vacor stepped forward, a cruel smile on his face. It's over, Commander, he said. Lay down your arms. But Rotter didn't move. He stood tall, towering over the rebels. I will lay down nothing, except you. With a sudden roar, he hurled the detonator across the room, not at the reactor controls, but into the hands of one of his loyal soldiers hiding near the CUM station. The loyalist dove for cover, clutching it tightly. Get to the escape bay, Rotter barked. Now. Sarah's voice shouted from the CUMs. Rotter, what are you doing? The commander's eyes met hers one last time before the battle engulfed him. Buying time. For your world. Blaster fire filled the bridge. The hidden threat, the bridge of the Zorith dreadnought, was a storm of noise and chaos. Blaster fire cracked through the air. Smoke rose from the floor panels. Sparks rained from damaged consoles. The rebels and loyalists clashed, their shouts echoing in the metal chamber. Commander Rotter fought like a living tank, his massive frame absorbing hits that would have dropped any other soldier. But for every rebel he struck down, another seemed to take their place. Viacor stayed back, watching with cold satisfaction. "It's over, Commander," he shouted. "When you fall, the Empire will see me as the one who brought order back to this ship." Rotter didn't waste words on him. His focus was survival and time, because far below, on Earth, Sarah Kane was in a race of her own. Sarah's battle, the UN underground command room, was a hive of tension. Sarah had just finished explaining to the world leaders what Rotter had told her, the truth about the Vornak swarm. Many didn't believe her. "That alien is manipulating you," said General Cole, his voice sharp. "The only swarm I see is the fleet of his people above our planet. He had a chance to destroy us and didn't." Sarah shot back. "Why? If he wanted us dead, we'd be dead already. This is bigger than our war with the Zorith." "President." Lewis looked at her, his expression caught between doubt and fear. "You're saying there's another enemy out there, worse than this Empire?" "Yes," Sarah said firmly, "and they are coming." The first signs, as if on cue, an alarm blared in the command center. A radar technician spun from his console, his face pale. "Sir, we've got something," he stammered. "No, we've got hundreds of somethings. Objects approaching from deep space, fast." On the giant screen, dozens, then hundreds of red dots appeared on the edge of the solar system. "They're not ships," the technician said, his voice shaking. "At least, not ships like we know. Their signatures are biological." Sarah's blood ran cold. "It's them, the swarm." Back on the dreadnought, the blast doors to the bridge finally gave way. Smoke poured in as more rebels stormed through. Rotter's loyalists fell back toward the escape corridor. One of them, a young warrior named Korath, grabbed Rotter's arm. "Commander, we must leave. The human scans are picking up the swarm already." Rotter froze mid-strike. "What did you say?" "They're here," Korath panted. "On the edge of the system. The swarm has arrived early." The words hit Rotter harder than any blaster shot. The Empire had predicted they wouldn't arrive for another cycle. This changed everything. Viacor's voice rang out over the chaos. "Then let them come. They'll finish what you were too weak to do." Rotter's temper snapped. In one swift motion, he slammed Vacor against the wall, claws gripping his throat. "You fool," Rotter growled, his voice like thunder. "The swarm does not finish wars, it ends worlds." "What the swarm is," he released Vacor, letting him drop to the floor, gasping for air. Rotter turned to his loyalists. "Fall back to the hangar. Get to the fighters." Sarah's voice crackled through the still active comms. "Rotter, talk to me. What exactly are they?" The commander moved quickly down the smoke-filled corridor, rebels in pursuit. His heavy footsteps shook the deck. "They are not like my people, or yours," he said between breaths. "The swarm is not an army. It is a living tide. Creatures bred to devour anything with mass. Metal, flesh, stone. They consume, grow, and move on. There is no negotiation. There is no surrender." "Are they intelligent?" Sarah asked. "Yes," Rotter replied, grimly, "but their intelligence is hunger. They learn only to feed more efficiently. Entire planets vanish in hours. I have seen them tear through fleets that dwarfed mine. I have seen worlds burn in their shadow." Sarah's throat tightened. "Then we need to work together, now." The first glimpse in the UN control room, the massive screen zoomed in on the incoming swarm. At first, it looked like a cloud of black dust. But as the image sharpened, the dust resolved into millions of dark, insect-like shapes, each the size of a small fighter craft. The shapes moved as one, undulating in a way that felt unnatural, a single mind controlling countless bodies. "They're alive," one technician whispered. "And they're fast," another added. "ETA, 40 hours until they reach Earth." Desperate measures Rotor and his loyalists reached the hangar bay. He climbed into a sleek Zorath assault fighter, its hull scarred from old battles. Korath took the pilot's seat while Rotor strapped into the weapons console. Sarah's voice still followed him. "If you make it here, I can try to convince our leaders to trust you. But you have to give me something, proof you're not here to kill us." The fighter's engines roared to life. Rotor's gaze locked on the stars ahead. "When you see me fire on the swarm, you will have your proof." But as they launched from the dreadnought, dozens of rebel fighters detached from the ship and turned toward them. Vaco wasn't going to let him leave without a fight. Three-way battle, the space above Earth erupted in light. Rotor's fighter weaved through laser fire, returning blasts with precision. Two rebel ships exploded in flashes of orange flame, but more took their place. In the distance, still far, but growing larger, the black wave of the swarm crawled closer, blotting out the stars. Sarah watched the battle feed in the UN room, her knuckles white against the edge of the table. "If those bugs hit while we're still fighting the Zorath rebels, we won't stand a chance." President Lewis looked at her. "Then convince your alien friend to end this civil war and focus on the real enemy." The warning over the comes. Rotor's voice was hard, urgent. "Listen to me, human. 40 hours is all you have. The swarm will consume everything, your cities, your oceans, your people. If you have weapons, prepare them. If you have ships, launch them. And if you have courage, now is the time to show it." Sarah's voice was steady, though her heart was pounding. "And you, what will you do?" There was a pause. "Then, I will do what I have always done. Fight until there is nothing left to fight for." The betrayal, the hangar doors of the Zorath dreadnought closed behind Rotor's fighter as he tore through the chaos of space. Laser fire streaked past his cockpit, each shot leaving a burning afterimage in the black void. His loyalist pilot, Korath, gritted his teeth as he twisted the craft between incoming blasts. "We can't keep this up," Korath shouted over the roar of the engines. "They're everywhere." Rotor's claws danced over the weapons console. A missile locked onto a pursuing rebel ship, and with a sharp command in the Zorath tongue, he launched it. The explosion lit up the void in a burst of fire and debris, but there were more. Always more. Earth's divided room far below. In the underground United Nations Command Center, Sarah Kane stood before the massive central screen. It showed the same battle Rotor was fighting above Earth, every explosion reflected in her. Wide eyes around her, the leaders were not united. "This is madness," General Cole said, his voice like steel. "You're asking us to trust one alien warlord against another alien threat. For all we know, the swarm is just his way of scaring us into surrender." Sarah turned on him, her voice sharp. "The swarm is real. You saw the scans. You saw them moving through the system." "And yet," Cole countered, "he still fired on human satellites when he arrived. That's not the action of an ally." President Lewis raised a hand for silence, but the tension in the room was like a drawn bow. "We don't have the luxury of being sure," he said. "In 40 hours, those creatures will be here. We either stand together, or we fall separately." A whisper in the shadows while the debate raged. A figure slipped quietly out of the command room, a man in a dark suit with a thin face and calculating eyes. He moved through the narrow hallways of the bunker, his steps quick and purposeful. His name was Richard Hawley, an intelligence officer from one of Earth's most secretive agencies. And Richard didn't trust Sarah Kane. To him, everything about this alien savior was a dangerous fantasy. Worse, Sarah's influence was steering the president toward a decision Hawley believed would doom them all. He stepped into a small, secure comms room, locking the door behind him. From his pocket, he pulled out a slim, unauthorized transmitter. One not connected to the UN network. He tapped a code. The device blinked once, twice. Then connected. "This is Hale," he said quietly. "Contacting Zorith Command Channel Sigma-7. I have information," a cold, alien voice replied. "Proceed." Back in the fight, Ruthless fighter jolted as a rebel blast scraped across its wing, sending sparks flying inside the cockpit. Korath cursed and adjusted the stabilizers. "We can't head to Earth yet," Korath warned. "Too much heat on us. We need to lose them first." Rotter scanned the space ahead. Off to the port side was a dense field of shattered asteroids, the remains of a long-dead moon. "Head for the debris," Rotter ordered. "We'll lose them in the rocks." Korath obeyed, and the fighter dove into the maze of tumbling stone. Rebel ships followed, but one by one, they smashed into floating boulders or were picked off by Rotter's precise fire. For a brief moment, the commander allowed himself a breath. But then Sarah's voice came through the com. "Rotter, something's wrong. Someone down here is feeding information to your enemies." The leak. Sarah spoke quickly, her voice tight with urgency. "I caught a transmission ping, not from us, not from your loyalists. Someone in the UN bunker sent your location to the Zorith Empire directly. They know you're fighting rebels, and they'll send reinforcements to finish you off." Rotter's eyes narrowed. "Then Earth's leaders have their own traitors." "It's not the leaders," Sarah replied. "At least not all of them. I think it's an intelligence officer. Someone who doesn't believe the swarm is real." Rotter let out a low growl. "If this traitor keeps feeding them your defenses, the Empire will use the swarm's attack as a distraction to crush you." On the edge in the UN command center, Holly returned, blending into the background as Sarah briefed the room about the intercepted transmission. "I don't know who sent it." She lied. She wasn't ready to accuse Holly without proof. "But if we can't secure our communications, we might as well send the swarm an invitation." Cole folded his arms. "Or maybe this is just your alien friend's excuse to keep us fighting his war." President Lewis slammed his hand on the table. "Enough. This is no longer about trust. This is about survival. Get every ship we have into orbit. I don't care if it's military, commercial, or experimental. Arm them all. The Empire moves above Earth, deep in the cold darkness." Another Zorith fleet had just slipped out of faster-than-light travel. It was smaller than Rotter's dreadnought, but bristling with weapons. Ships sent directly by the Empire to secure the situation. The lead ship's commander spoke into his comms. "Find Rotter. Kill him if necessary. And prepare to enforce the Empire's will on the human world." The fleet split into attack formations. Their paths were set, one toward Rotter, and one toward Earth. The realization Raiders fighter exited the asteroid field, its hull battered but intact. Ahead lay the blue and white curve of Earth. For a moment, the sight made even the battle-hardened commander pause. It was beautiful. Fragile, worth protecting. Then his sensors screamed. Multiple Zorith ships had entered the system. "They're here," Korath muttered. "Not the swarm?" Rotter asked. Korath shook his head grimly. "The Empire." Rotter's mind sharpened. Then someone on Earth has indeed betrayed us. The betrayal revealed in the bunker. Haile quietly slipped a small device under one of the main comm consoles, a signal scrambler that would blind Earth's defensive systems when activated. He glanced over his shoulder, making sure no one saw. But someone did. Sarah. She approached silently, her voice cold. "What are you doing, Halle?" He didn't flinch. "Saving Earth from a dangerous mistake. By disabling our defenses?" She demanded. "By making sure that alien doesn't use us as his shield," Holly replied. "The swarm's not real. This is all a setup to draw the Empire into a war they don't want. If I have to cripple our systems to stop it, I will." Sarah stared at him in disbelief. "If you do this, you'll kill us all." Hal's eyes were hard. Better dead than conquered. The last stand, the countdown had begun. In less than 24 hours, the swarm would reach Earth's orbit. From space, the danger looked almost beautiful. A shimmering black wave sweeping toward the planet, swallowing starlight as it came. But beauty could not hide the truth. Each dot in that wave was a living machine of hunger, a predator that could strip a city to dust in minutes. And yet, before the swarm arrived, Earth faced another danger. The Empire's fleet, Rotor and Orbith Rotor's assault fighter, burst from the asteroid shadows into open space. Ahead, the sleek and deadly silhouettes of the Empire's ships blocked his path. Their formation was perfect, tight lines, guns forward, like a predator circling its kill. "This is your last warning, Rotor," came a voice over the comms, sharp and arrogant. "Cut power and surrender. You will be tried for treason." Against the Empire. Treason? Rotor's deep voice was calm, but there was iron behind it. "I am guilty. Only of thinking beyond the Empire's chains." The fleet opened fire. Koreth threw the fighter into a dive, lasers streaking past them like burning comets. Rotor's claws danced over the weapon controls, answering with bursts of plasma that tore through an enemy interceptor. "There. Not here just for you," Koreth warned. "Half the fleet is heading for Earth." Rotor's eyes narrowed. "Then we stop them here." In the bunker far below, in the United Nations command bunker, Sarah Kane stood inches from Richard Hawley. Her eyes locked on the small signal scrambler he had just planted under the main defense console. "You're out of your mind," she hissed. "That thing goes live. Our targeting systems are blind. We won't hit a single swarm unit when they arrive." Hale's expression was cold. "Better blind than being used as bait for your alien friend's war." She stepped toward him, her voice low. "This isn't about him. It's about every person on this planet. If you shut us down, billions die." Hale's hand moved toward the device's activator switch. Sarah moved first. They crashed into the console, the room exploding into shouts as nearby officers realized what was happening. Hawley was strong, but Sarah fought with desperation, grappling for his wrist. The device slipped from his fingers, clattering to the floor. Two soldiers rushed in, dragging Hawley away, but he shouted over their shoulders, "You're all fools. He'll turn on you the second the swarm is gone." Sarah bent down, picking up the device with shaking hands. She switched it off and slid it into her pocket. Her heart pounded, but she forced herself to stand tall. "Get him locked up. And double-check every system. We're not giving the swarm an easy fight." The Empire's push above Earth, the Empire's fleet pressed forward. Rotor's fighter weaved between their lines, firing precision strikes that took out weapon turrets and engines, but for every ship he crippled, two more advanced. "They're breaking through," Koreth warned, glancing at the sensors. "Not yet," Rotor growled. He keyed the comm to an open channel, one that Earth's leaders could hear. "This is Rotor of the Zorath Empire." His voice thundered. "I stand against my own fleet, not for glory, not for conquest, but because the swarm will consume us all if we do not fight together. I will hold them as long as I can. Prepare your defenses." The comm went silent for a moment. Then, President Lewis's voice replied, "Earth stands with you, Commander. You hold them off, we'll be ready." Mobilization on the surface. The world moved like it had never moved before. Military ships scrambled into orbit. Cargo freighters were armed with makeshift railguns. Civilian pilots volunteered for evacuation runs. Factories shifted overnight to produce ammunition, armor plating, and drones. Sarah coordinated from the bunker, moving between stations, checking readiness reports. For the first time, she saw humans working with a single purpose: survival. First collision, in orbit, the Empire's lead destroyer broke formation, making a direct run for Earth. "They're trying to punch through." Koreth shouted. "Not on my watch," Rotor said, his voice like stone. He dove the fighter toward the destroyer's underbelly, plasma guns blazing. Armor shattered under the assault. The massive ship turned to bring its guns to bear, but Rotter was too close. He fired a pair of torpedoes straight into its reactor housing. The explosion lit up the void, the shockwave rattling their small craft. "Destroyer down," Korath reported, awe in his voice. The shadow approaches, but victory was short-lived. On the outer edge of the system, the swarm began to accelerate. The radar screen in the bunker updated, the red cloud surging forward like a living storm. "They've picked up speed," a technician warned. "ETA is now under 20 hours. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. The swarm had seen the battle in orbit and was coming to join it. The Empire's last move, the remaining Zorath fleet regrouped, trying to hold their lines against Rotter. But then, something unexpected happened. One of the smaller frigates broke formation and opened a channel directly to him. "This is Captain Sorath," a voice said in the Zorath tongue. "We've heard your words, Commander. If the swarm is truly coming, then we will not feed them Earth's bones. We fight with you." Rotter glanced at Korath. "Mark their ships as allies. Cover their retreat into formation. More comes." Crackled in hesitant voices from other captains, slowly choosing to side with Rotter. The fleet that had been sent to destroy him was beginning to splinter. On the ground in the bunker, Sarah received word of the shift. "Some of the Empire's ships are defecting to Raytur's side," she told the room. President Lewis nodded. "Then let's make it official. Any Zorath ship willing to fight the swarm is welcome in Earth's defense net." Even General Cole didn't argue. The time for doubt was over. The wall before the storm. By the time the swarm crossed into the inner solar system, the picture above Earth had changed completely. Human ships, Zorath loyalists, and defectors from the Empire formed a single defensive wall. Fighters darted between larger warships. Orbital stations bristled with weapons. In the center of it all, Rotter's fighter hovered like a black spear, ready to strike. On the bunker screen, the swarm loomed, a black sea stretching from one side of the display to the other. Their numbers were beyond counting. Rotter's voice came through the comms, steady and unyielding. "This is it. The last stand begins now." From enemy to savior, the swarm came like night falling over the stars. A black tide, stretching across space, each living craft moving in perfect, unnatural harmony. Their chittering roars carried through the void as vibrations picked up by every ship's sensors filled the comms with a sound like endless grinding teeth. From the bridge of the United Nations Orbital Command Station, Sarah Kane stared at the main screen. The sheer size of the swarm made her feel small, and yet strangely determined. "They're almost in weapons range," a technician reported, his voice tight. Sarah gripped the edge of the console. "Then let's give them a welcome they'll remember." The opening strike in orbit, the combined fleet, humans, Zorath defectors, and Rotter's loyalists, held position in a long curved formation. It was designed to catch the swarm head-on, focusing fire where the creatures would hit hardest. Rotter's voice boomed across the comms, broadcast to every ship. "Warriors of Earth, warriors of Zorath, we do not fight today as enemies. We fight as one people, against a hunger that would devour us all. Hold your ground. Show them we will not be prey." The first wave of swarm fighters broke from the main mass, darting forward like angry hornets. The fleet opened fire, laser bursts, plasma bolts, railgun slugs, and missile trails lit up the void. Explosions bloomed like flowers of light, but for every swarm unit destroyed, more took its place. The swarms counterattacked. The swarm hit the front lines with terrifying speed. Their bodies slammed into ship hulls, their claws and mandibles tearing through armor. Some latched on and began eating their way inside, ignoring gunfire until they burst into corridors filled with screaming crews. Human ships burned. Zorath cruisers shattered. Still, The line held. From his fighter, Rotter cut through the chaos, blasting swarm units off a damaged human frigate. His voice stayed steady on the come. Stay together. Protect the gaps. Korath piloted hard, weaving through the debris. Commander, the second wave is forming behind them. They're trying to break through the center. Rotter's gaze hardened. Then we break them first. Inside the bunker on Earth, Sarah moved between operators, relaying orders, adjusting targeting solutions for orbital defenses, and keeping ground-based railguns locked on larger swarm carriers dotting the corner of the room. Richard Hiley sat in a guarded cell, glaring at her through the glass wall. He mouthed something she couldn't hear, but she didn't have time to care. The comms crackled. "This is Frigate Hope's Light. Hull breach on Deck 6. We're venting atmosphere. Get emergency seals in place," Sarah ordered. "Medical teams, be ready to receive survivors." Another voice broke in. "Command, the swarm is changing formation. They're pulling back their front line." Sarah froze. Pulling back? That wasn't retreat. That was strategy. The Queen on the edge of the black mass. A shape emerged, massive, armored, and bristling with spines. It was larger than any swarm unit seen so far, nearly the size of a battleship. Its body pulsed with a sickly green light, and every movement of its clawed limbs sent ripples through the swarm. Rotter's voice came through, grim and certain. "That is their queen. Kill her, and the swarm will falter." Sarah's heart sank. "And if we don't, then your world burns." The Planrator quickly outlined his strategy. The combined fleet would punch a corridor through the swarm's formation. He and a small strike group would dive through, hit the Queen directly, and detonate a fusion warhead against her core dot. It was suicide. Everyone knew it. "Commander," Korath said quietly, "you won't make it back." Rotter looked at him, and for a brief moment, his battle-hardened eyes softened. "We are all going to die one day, Korath. The only choice we get is why." The corridor of the fleet tightened formation and poured fire into a single section of the swarm wall. Ship after ship was sacrificed to hold the opening long enough for Rotter's team to slip through. Inside the black tide, the light from the stars was gone. It was like flying through a living cave, walls made of writhing, clawed bodies. Swarm fighters hurled themselves at Rotter's craft, but his guns spoke in rapid bursts, clearing a path. Two of the strike group were torn apart, their fragments vanishing into the darkness. The Queen loomed ahead, her many eyes glowing with cold hunger. "The final run, Korath," Rotter said over the roar of the engines. "When we get close, I'll arm the warhead manually. You take the fighter and get out." "I'm not leaving you," Korath said. "That's an order." Rotter growled. The Queen's massive jaws opened, revealing rows of teeth that could crush a starship in half. Green plasma lanced from her spines, vaporizing one of the strike ships instantly. Rotter's fighter weaved and rolled, closing the distance. The warhead's arming sequence blinked red in the corner of his HUD. The sacrifice, they were almost on top of the Queen when a swarm of interceptors cut across their path. Rotter ripped them apart with the last of their missiles, but the delay was enough for the Queen to turn and face them fully. "Now, Korath!" Rotter shouted. Korath hesitated. "Commander, go." Korath's hands trembled as he punched the eject controls. The cockpit canopy blew open, and the pilot's seat shot free, carrying Korath away into the void. Raider stayed in the craft, claws locked on the controls, steering straight into the Queen's open maw. The warhead timer hit 0. A white light, brighter than the sun, swallowed the screen. The silence for a few heartbeats. There was no sound, no battle, no comms chatter, just silence. Then, like a chain snapping, the swarm broke. Across the battlefield, units veered off course, colliding into each other. The black tide fractured into scattered, aimless fragments, fleeing into the void. The Queen was gone. Aftermath in the bunker. Sarah watched the red indicators on the screen fade. The operators looked at each other in disbelief. Some cheered, some cried. President Lewis turned to her. We actually did it." She swallowed hard, her eyes still on the empty space. Where Rotter's fighter had been, he did it. Legacy in the weeks that followed, Earth began to rebuild. The Zorif defectors who had fought with them were granted safe passage, many choosing to stay as allies. A memorial was built, not just for the humans who had fallen, but for the alien warrior who had once come to conquer them. At its center stood a towering statue, Rotter in his black armor, head high, looking toward the stars. The plaque beneath read, "From enemy to savior, Rotter, defender of humanity." Sarah visited often. She would stand there quietly, remembering his voice, his unyielding courage. And every time she would whisper the same words, "Thank you."